Hello, everyone. We are excited to present our final project focused on governance, risk, and compliance, or GRC. GRC is a comprehensive framework that integrates governance strategies, risk management practices, and compliance protocols to strengthen an organization's overall resilience. In today's increasingly complex and regulated business environment, implementing an effective GRC program is no longer optional, it's essential. Our project demonstrates how a well-designed GRC program can align corporate objectives with risk mitigation strategies, streamline regulatory adherence, and drive sustainable growth. Throughout this presentation, we'll outline our approach to develop a GRC program, its impacts on organizational operations, and how it can be tolerated to meet specific business goals. We'll also discuss key insights and recommendations for a successful implementation. Now, let's get started. Let's start with an executive summary of governance, risk, and compliance, or GRC program. The GRC program is designed to address governance, risk management, and regulatory compliance in a cohesive way. It fosters a culture of proactive risk management, ensures regulatory compliance, and improves operational efficiency. The program has significant benefits, such as protecting the company's financial stability, safeguarding its reputation, and reducing potential liabilities like disruptions or fines. Additionally, it strengthens the company's competitive position, helping us build stronger relationships with customers, investors, and regulators. While implementing a GRC program involves an initial investment in technology, training, and government structures, the long-term return on investment far outweighs these costs. It minimizes risks, avoids costly penalties, and positions the company as a trustworthy and reliable organization. In short, the GRC program is a critical initiative for our success and sustainability. Now let's talk about what governance, risk, and compliance, or GRC, actually is. GRC is a comprehensive approach that helps organizations like ours manage governance structures, identify and mitigate risks, and ensure compliance with regulations. It aligns business processes with legal requirements and ethical standards. This is especially relevant today as businesses face increasingly complex regulations like GDPR and industry-specific standards, alongside growing threats such as cybersecurity breaches and fraud. Real-world examples show us the consequences of neglecting GRC. The 2017 Equifax data breach exposed millions of consumers' personal data and cost over $1 billion in legal fees, fines, and reputational damage. Similarly, Volkswagen's emissions scandal heightened governance failures, resulting in billions in penalties and long-lasting reputational harm. These cases demonstrate why a strong GRC framework is essential, not just to avoid disaster, but to ensure ethical governance and long-term success. Let's take a closer look at the justification for implementing a governance, risk, and compliance program. In today's business landscape, companies face increasingly complex regulatory requirements involving cyber threats and growing expectations from stakeholders. Without a structured approach to governance and risk management, organizations are more vulnerable to compliance failures, data breaches, and operational disruptions. A GRC program provides a centralized framework to address these challenges proactively. Beyond mitigating risk, a GRC program will deliver tangible benefits. It enhances decision making by providing better visibility into risk and controls, fosters accountability across the organization, and builds trust with regulators, investors, and customers. Additionally, it streamlines operations by reducing redundancies, ensuring consistent practices across departments. The cost of not implementing a GRC program can far greater be than the initial investment required. Regulatory fines, reputational damage, and the loss of customer trust can be devastating. By taking a proactive approach with a GRC program, we can protect our organization's assets, improve its resilience, and position it for long-term success in an increasingly competitive environment.
Great, thanks, Frank. So now what we want to do is transition to the overarching strategy for a GRC program. We see that governance is at the heart of this effort. A well-defined governance strategy, like the one outlined on the slide below, emphasizes embedding governance into the organization's culture. This ensures that governance isn't an afterthought or a standalone function, but a core part of how we operate. So let's break this down. First, we need to define. At this stage, it's critical to establish clarity around roles and responsibilities. Governance isn't effective unless everyone, from the frontline staff to the board of directors, understands their accountability in the process. For instance, board-level oversight is crucial because it signals the importance of GRC to the entire organization and sets a precedent for prioritizing these initiatives. Second, we need to establish. Once roles are defined, the next step is to create and implement the appropriate frameworks. This is where we ensure alignment with regulatory requirements, industry standards, and organizational objectives are fulfilled properly. Importantly, these frameworks should be flexible enough to adapt to evolving business needs while being robust enough to ensure consistency. Clear business objectives must guide this process, ensuring that every action taken under the governance framework drives the organization closer to its strategic goals. Third, we need to promote. Governance doesn't end with defining and establishing. It thrives on continuous refinement. Promoting accountability across all levels ensures that governance remains a living, breathing part of the organizational culture. This also requires mechanisms for continuous improvement. Regular audits, feedback loops, and lessons learned from past incidents allow us to refine our governance processes and maintain alignment with our overarching strategy. The takeaway here is that governance must be intentional and iterative. By embedding it in the organization's culture, it becomes a natural extension of how we operate, ensuring not just compliance, but also a proactive approach to managing risks and driving business value. As we move forward, our task will be to tailor these principles to our organization's unique needs, ensuring that governance is not just a strategic initiative, but a competitive advantage. So now that we've established the governance strategy, let's dive into the next critical piece of our GRC program, risk management. If governance is the structure, risk management is the engine. It provides the insights and tools we need to anticipate and address potential threats effectively. This slide lays out a balanced approach to risk management, integrating both qualitative and quantitative methodologies. These aren't competing strategies, rather they work hand in hand to give us a well-rounded understanding of the risks we face. On the qualitative side, this is going to focus on adaptable and strategic methodologies. The qualitative approach is about addressing risks that don't always come with hard numbers but are still critical. It emphasizes expert judgment and subjective rankings. These evaluate less tangible risks like reputational or emerging market challenges. It also helps align with various business objectives, so risk assessments are relevant and actionable. And it can also empower feedback loops to ensure that we adapt as risks evolve and new information comes in. It's flexible and focused on the bigger picture, helping us stay agile in a rapidly changing environment. On the other hand, the quantitative side, it's more data-driven and precise. It's all about measurable data, and it leverages statistical modeling and predictive analytics to assess risks based on likelihood and impact. It also leverages impact analysis to quantify financial, operational, and compliance risks, and it can also lead to structured integration to embed risk metrics into daily operations for consistency. This method provides the precision and predictability we need for informed decision making. Why both matter? Well, when we bring these two approaches together, we get the best of both worlds: strategic foresight from qualitative methods and operational precision from quantitative ones. This combination not only strengthens our ability to manage risks, but also ensures our efforts are aligned with governance and compliance goals. Ultimately, this dual approach helps us prioritize effectively, allocate resources wisely, and adapt to new challenges, all while keeping the organization resilient and focused on its overall business objectives. So now, building on our governance and risk management strategies, compliance is the operational execution that ensures we meet regulatory and business obligations. This framework, map, monitor, and audit, guides us in achieving sustainable compliance. The first step is mapping regulatory requirements. These can include GLBA and SOX to organizational roles and responsibilities. This ensures clarity and alignment, creating a foundation where everyone knows their part in meeting compliance standards. Next, we need a monitor. This focuses on monitoring compliance, leveraging automation to track metrics, and enforcing reporting schedules and flag deviations. Automation not only improves efficiency, but ensures compliance aligns seamlessly with governance and risk management efforts. Finally, we need to audit. Regular audits identify gaps, refine processes, and validate effectiveness. Using structured checklists, audits ensure we're proactively addressing issues and continuously improving our compliance. By embedding this map, monitor, audit cycle into our operations, we create a compliance framework that is robust, agile, and aligned with our strategic as well as business objectives.
In Phase 1, risk identification is achieved through committee discussion and continuing stakeholder interviews. We will initiate a cost-benefit analysis, CBA, usually done by performing a quantitative risk assessment. This assessment will give us a baseline for our organization's risk state. We will also add the need to comply with the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, to our framework. Through Phase 2, policies and procedures are developed that are aligned with compliance and remediation of risks. This is known as risk management framework. Such policies should include developing customer privacy procedures about the assemblage and use of customer data written in apparent terms to be described to customers upon account creation as per GLBA. Creating an access control list, ACL, for the database containing any personal customer information with the use of multi-factor authentication validation to access the database, and assigning the implementation and maintenance of this list to the system administration team to reduce illicit access. In Phase 3, we implement the framework, which we will detail later. In Phase 4, we will set up applications to log who created or updated transaction records and when. Observing these logs will assist in moderating internal threats. We will improve the current systems as new threats arise and update the BCP with this information. We will monitor the risks on the Strategic Risk Index, especially those with a high risk score. Units and departments will be asked to review the operational risks captured in their indices. The Finance and Audit Committee reviews the Strategic Risk Index, which meets quarterly to audit the systems, ensuring the company is still in compliance with GLBA. It is reported to the board. The board will continually review its risk appetite and risk tolerance, as well as the efficiency of the internal control system. In doing so, the board will examine the previous year with the company's track record on risk management, evaluate whether the company has made the correct conclusions on risk that increase value and protection, determine the internal and external risk threats of the coming year, assess whether the present internal control procedures are likely to be successful. During Phase 5, employees will receive semi-annual cybersecurity awareness training on company policies. As new threats arise, new policies are added to this training. We will learn from our risk management experience and pursue sharing concepts and concerns with employees to support them in working successfully risk-based. This will incorporate understanding from those risks that we take on intentionally where we believe we could acquire considerable advances if conducted sensibly. Our risk management method reveals department direction and goals to distinctly set responsibility for recognizing and controlling different degrees or types of risk in an ordered approach. In each circumstance, the holder of the risk should have early warning mechanisms to alert management so that counteractive action can be taken to control potential incidents. We begin phase 3 by selecting and building risk management and compliance controls. First, we install locks on all doors to data centers and hire security guards to patrol these data centers. Second, we write our customer data privacy protection policy. Third, we make a procedure for storing all social security and account numbers encrypted in the database. Fourth, we create the access control list, or ACL, providing access only to necessary personnel to the customer's personal information database. This system administration team will handle this. Fifth, we install the intrusion detection system, or IDS. Next, we place the portal web server in a DMZ. Then we set up procedures to make backups of transaction data every 5 minutes. Finally, we will develop the Business Continuity Plan, or BCP, containing the above systems.
Hello, this is the key dates, milestones, and goals to complete timeline for the implementation process. So first, we plan on starting around April 1st. And that would be the start and assessment planning. This process is projected to take around 3 weeks based on our timeline. This should mean by April 25th that it is expected that there is a final plan put in place and a complete assessment of everything. This is just for the planning process and making sure we're ready to get started with all the implementation. The second is to make sure we start the framework policy and development. This should take around a month and be finished around May 25th. There will be a halfway checkup on this on May 5th to make sure we meet the deadline. The third step is to start implementing. I projected that this will take around a month and a half. We will also need a halfway checkup to make sure it will meet the goal on July 17th. This halfway checkup will happen on June 20th. The fourth step, starting on July 17th, is to start testing the system and run checks on it. We also need to create a testing protocol when it comes to this system. We plan on completing this by July 31st. The fifth step is to start employee training on the systems. We plan on starting this August 5th and be done with all training and with all the employees by August 15th. As you can see, this is a 4.5 month timeline for our GRC system. When it comes to companies, it depends on the size of the company and how many employees there are for all this to happen and how big they want to make the GRC. But this is ours. It is projected to be a 4.5 month process from April 1st to August 15th. When you plan out the GRC, make sure the timeline is up to date and run checks and make sure you're meeting all the goals and deadlines and getting everything completed when it is planned, and make sure you get everything completed. After this system is implemented, it is very important to keep track of the GRC and to project the failure of it. It's also important to look at the future of it too and make sure you put in a system to start weekly tests. And if you have a good training plan in place, it will make this process easy as you can start to train people in the future. They will also be able to learn the system easier in the future. There are a lot of costs that go into GRC, but the two main categories are initial costs and outgoing costs. Initial costs are the personnel, tools, consulting, and training. When it comes to initial costs, the most expensive thing will always be people, whether it's consultant or personnel. Consulting is a huge fee, as just for one person for a 4-month project would be around 400 hours. This can cost the company roughly $20,000 to $35,000. If your project needs up to 10 people working on it for 4 months, it'll cost up to $350,000 just for the people. Implementation costs can vary from GRC costs, can range between $20,000 to $100,000 a year, depending on the choice of your GRC software solution and several other factors. The outgoing costs would be maintenance of GRC tools, regular audits, and staff training. The cheapest category would be staff training, as it would only be about $2.50 per person with the training programs. Several GRC solutions can have ongoing maintenance and support fees. These costs include software updates, technical support, expert help, renewals, and more. The table that we have here is the estimated cost of GRC for the employees and the companies. So this is based on the employee size. So if you have 0 to 100 employees, it can be up to $250. 100 to 500, it could be around $1,000. 500 to 1,000 employees, it could be a little bit under $2,000. And more than 1,000 employees could be around $4,000 to $12,000, depending on your choice of provider. And there are many factors when it comes to GRC pricing within an organization. For example, the number of employees, number of users, software version, and number of integrations. The key is to see what your company needs and to see what the cheapest and most efficient way to do it. Some GRC systems can be very expensive and some very least expensive, but if you do research before and plan it all out budget-wise, you can be able to do this efficiently and cheap.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation. We appreciate your attention and hope we provided valuable insights into the importance and benefits of a governance, risk, and compliance program.